So I was playing yesterday. I got a 2-5 no limit, which is a $300 to $1,000 cap.
Okay.
And my image was pretty aggressive. I had lost a pot, a fairly big pot, like flush over flush, maybe a half hour earlier. So not that I think anyone would put me in the steaming category, but I think my image was probably more neutral than winning, even though I had a stack of like 1,800 in front of me.
Yeah.
Okay, so villain 1 on the hand has a stack of 1,200, and he's in the small blind. Villain 2 has a stack of about $255 in the big blind.
Okay.
And villain 3, which is inconsequential, has about $500, and he's like an MP2. And I'm on the button with Jack 10 of clubs, and I start with $1,800, so I have everyone covered.
Okay.
And it gets limped to me, and I make what I would say is a fairly large-ish raise to $30, based upon my image and the fact that I'm on the button with a pretty premium hand here. So I raise a little bit more than I might typically raise. Like
so a couple of people limp in or something like that?
Actually, one limper, I should say, and then the blinds, which haven't acted yet.
So MP2 limps, you make it 30 with Jack 10 of clubs.
Right.
Okay.
Small blind, big blind, and MP2 all call.
So small blind, big blind, and MP2 call. So one limp, you make it 30, small blind, big blind, MP2 call. So it looks like it's about $120, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
And just the player information, small blind is a pretty decent, fairly aggressive player when he has a hand. Big blind is horrific. I mean, he's just the worst. And he's just clicking buttons. He doesn't know what he's doing. So I don't, can't figure him out. Okay. And MP2, again, doesn't really matter. So flop comes 10 of hearts, 9 of clubs, 4 of hearts.
10 of hearts, 9 of clubs. 10 of hearts, 9 of clubs, 4 of hearts. Okay.
Correct.
Yep.
It gets checked to me, which is naturally what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet 75 into 120.
Okay. Now, again, I mean, from the newer school thought is that you're definitely supposed to go a little bit sort of on the smaller side of this. Your hand has some good properties: backdoor club draw, straightening cards. So I think I like a bet here. Unless somehow you were going to be able to say like there was just way more 10x and everybody's sort of field call range. But I think your hand in live poker is strong enough to value bet. The question is, how much are you going to go? You could go sort of 40, 50. You sort of took larger sizing to 75. I think that can be okay. Okay, so you bet 75.
Yeah, and just to that point, I do generally mix in a fair amount of small bets when I believe that somebody might be calling me light. But I thought that this board was fairly draw heavy. And they might also think that I just had like an ace-king type hand and was c-betting stronger, given that I think this is a good board texture to c-bet fairly strong on a 10-high board where you may have overcards come on the turn or river.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody, except for the MP2, small blind calls, big blind calls, MP2 folds.
All right, so small blind, big blind call, MP2 folds. So you just put 225 in there, so it looks like it's about 345 to the turn. Now, the small blind, so you're dealing with a couple of shorties, though, now, right? Because the big blind's got maybe like 400, and the small blind only has like 155, right? Left in their stack.
No, big blind has 1,200 to start, so he still has like 1,000 left.
Okay, maybe I wrote the stacks up here incorrectly or something.
No, you have it right. Up top, I see villain 1, 1,200, which...
In the small blind?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, I see. I got you. The big blind's short.
Yeah.
Small blind got it. I misspoke. Okay.
Yeah,
yep.
That's correct.
Yep.
That's correct, yeah. So the turn is the queen of clubs.
Okay.
Now, villain 1 leads for 150 into a pot of 345.
Okay.
Villain 2, interestingly, villain 2 flat calls, leaving $3 behind.
All right, I'm going to just put that as a calls all in because it's somewhat irrelevant. So, so this guy in the small blind who's got 1,200, he, and Hero covers, by the way, he leads out here. You turn a straight draw and an open-ended straight flush draw. He leads out for 150. Villain 2 calls all in. The reason why I thought that this was interesting, because we get one of these hands like pretty occasionally, is you're going to get into a scenario now where you've got one guy all in, and now you're going to be on the side. Now, what does that mean? It means that you still have to beat the player all in. So when somebody might be like, oh, why don't you just like, raise here, like on the come as a semi-bluff, your hand has so much, fold equity. The issue with that is that even if Miles were to raise and somehow got villain 1 off of a better hand, like Queen Jack or something like that from the small blind, he still has to beat villain 2's hand, which is now called all in, so it doesn't necessarily benefit us all that much. I mean, I think this is a slam dunk straightforward call.
Well, good. That's what I did.
Okay.
I'm glad. I was very curious as to, I mean, I assumed that you would say that, but I was curious what you'd say.
So it looks like the pot's about $7.95 now.
And I tell me what you think, but I mean, I was pretty certain that villain 1 who let out had like Queen 10, some sort of 2-pair hand.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Didn't make sense.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if he has the nuts, he's going to bet much bigger, or I think he'll maybe go for a check raise. But I think he'll probably just lead out much stronger if he has the nuts.
Okay.
So the river. So now, by the way, the pot now is $7.95 and a half. Okay. So the river is the ace of spades.
The ace of spades.
Correct.
Okay.
Villain 1 now takes a second and checks. Villain 2 now checks. And I thought that this was a pretty good card to bluff. So I bet $400 on the river.
So like I said, I'm going to write this up as villain 2 is all in, because that's what makes sense. So here's the thing here, though. So again, just like I said previously in the previous street, I really feel like you're basically bluffing into a dry side pot. So in order for this to work, well, you're not bluffing. Well, you're bluffing into a dry side pot. I mean, you're betting basically to get villain 1, who is in the small blind, out of the hand. If he had some sort of like, small 2 pairs type of hand, which sort of looks kind of, would be I guess a hard spot for him. Although you only bet 400. But the problem here is that not only do you have to get through him, looking at this is like, are you going to get Queen 10 to fold? Again, the board is 10 of hearts, 9 of clubs, 4 of hearts, Queen of clubs, Ace of spades, and Miles has Jack 10 of clubs, and he bet the flop. Call. He got led into on the turn. The guy in the middle calls all in, and now the river's an ace. 10, 9, 4, Queen, Ace. Now the guy that led the turn from V1 checks. Villain 2 is all in. The issue here is that even if you were to get villain 1 off of a better hand here, you still have to beat villain 2. So it's one of these things where now you say, well, like I said, we're writing it up like he called all in. Yeah, he's got $3 and he checks, but he's going to call. The point that I'm trying to make here is that that's a very, very large overlay, I feel like, to get through both of those players. If you were heads up and you wanted to say, I want to get him off of like, King 10 or a single paired queen or something like that, maybe I can get on board with it. I also think you may have a sliver of some sort of showdown value here against the guy who is in the small blind when he leads the turn. He could have, I'm trying to think here. I mean, I guess maybe it would just be like kind of the same hand, or like like a jack with a pair of nines, or you have a sliver of showdown value. So if I'm in a situation where I've got a sliver of showdown value and my bluff is going to have to get through 2 people and you're only betting 400 here, I would prefer a check back here more than betting just, basically 400. I mean, I'd almost like a more polarizing bet of full pot to try to get the guy off of like 2 pair. But I don't know, man. Like, front door hearts are out there that have busted out. So when a guy like hits Queen 10 on the turn and now he checks the river and you blast it, I feel like guys are always going to call in that spot.
Well, I like all of your points. My reads are pretty accurate most of the time. And my read was that I needed to get the first player off the hand. And because the second player was so wide and so bad, I feared that if I get the first player to fold in the small blind, that I have a very good chance of winning the pot with the second best hand relative to the small blind.
Why do you think that you have the second best hand necessarily when V2 from the big blind, now I guess maybe it's because you said he was clueless, is calling all in on the turn? Why do you think that Jack 10 favors to be the best hand when you overcalled the flop and now he's betting the turn? There's plenty of straight combos that have come in. He can easily have Queen X. You're the one that blocks the backdoor clubs. Also, if he ran into like ace X of hearts, I just think that that's a little bit optimistic to think that you're going to beat V2 here. So that's kind of my issue here with the play.
Okay. I didn't consider the concept that he may just have the naked nut flush draw.
I'm just looking at the possible hands that beat you here,
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I honestly, like, he literally could have bottom pair or middle pair. I mean, he could have so many hands that are so bad because I saw him go broke so many times that I was just like, I think I have this guy beat, and I think I'm definitely losing to the guy in the small blind. So I think that $400. I'm really targeting the small blind, getting him to fold the best hand. So I'm trying to buy the pot, and if I don't beat the guy in the middle, then that's so be it. So it turns out that so I bet 400. The small blind folds. Now the big blind, he throws his hand in the muck face down with the $3 behind. And this is kind of just one of the nuances we talk about sometimes. I want to hear your opinion on this. And the dealer goes, you're not all in. And the guy then, now his hand doesn't hit the muck. He just throws it in the muck, like say 12 inches in front of him. And so then he retrieves his hand and turns it face up and then throws the $3 in. And he had Jack 9, so it didn't matter. I knew I was beating him. But
had you revealed your hand yet?
No.
Oh, that would have been really something if you turned over Jack 10 and the guy threw over the $3, even though he was beat. Because you deserve it, or something. I've seen that before. Where some guy showed another guy that he had aces, and the guy said, "I'm not good enough to fold this hand," and they were pre-flop, and he called all in for $800 with kings. I swear to God, I saw that happen. The dealer shouldn't be saying that.
I know, and before I revealed my hand, I said to the dealer, "Isn't his hand dead?" Because not that I was trying to pull an angle or slow roll him. I wasn't. I was just like, I just want to know, like, can a guy do that? Can you just throw his hand in and then retrieve it, having not put the $3 in?
Well, I mean, he can certainly take his hand back if it hasn't sort of been mixed in the muck or the dealer hasn't grabbed it. I mean, you can toss your hand towards the muck and then go and grab it, but the dealer is absolutely not supposed to say you're not all in. I mean, why is he saying the guy's not all in if he's going to muck his hand anyways? He could say you're not all in if he goes to reveal his hand.
Right.
Sir, it's on you. You have to call the action, but you're not all in when the guy goes to muck his hand, right?
Yeah. The dealer should just pull his hand in, and then, I just work through the pot, and the guy goes, "Wait, what do you mean?" And he says, "Well, you're not all in. I mean, and you mucked your hand. Like, you didn't say call. He didn't say a word. He just threw the hand in." So believe me, I was happy that, I won the pot, but I was going to have an issue with it in a small way. I wouldn't have taken the pot from him had he had a better hand, and that happened because I'm not a slime bag. But I just thought that the dealer didn't act in the correct way when he did that.
Well, I mean, listen, I'm pretty loose with this type of stuff with recreational players, but I would have had an issue with the dealer if this exact thing happened and the guy went to muck his hand and then the dealer said, "You're not all in," to get the guy to call. I would have had an issue with that. I mean, there isn't really anything that can be done, but I wouldn't have been mad at anybody but the dealer, and I would have brought it to
the floor
to make. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but here's the thing, like, I mean, you really shouldn't be bluffing though in that spot because the guy's going to have to turn his hand over. So, it's just one of those things. But I think that one of the things you have to just think about is that whenever you're in a situation where you got to get through two people, and also you have a sliver of showdown value. I mean, it very well might be that you made the best play, but I think that I most likely wouldn't have done that. But I got to move along, Mile. Thank you very much for the call.
Okay.
I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Bart.
If you like what you've seen here, please hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this call-in hand, hit the like button down below. To check out crushlivepoker.com, click on the link in the description. Use the code YTA300 to get the first 30 days for free.